In this lesson, we are going to focus on box plots, and sometimes they're called box and whisker plots because we have the center area that's the box, and then off to the side here, you have what looks like whiskers. And box and whisker plots are a good graphical representation of the concentration of the data because the box in the center contains the middle 50% of the data when the data is ordered from smallest to largest. So inside the box here, I'll mark it off like this. That's going to contain the middle 50% of the data. Now, in order to draw a box plot, you need to know the 5-number summary. Okay, and we talked about the 5-number summary in the previous lesson. The 5-number summary are 5 numbers that characterize the data. We have the minimum value, the first quartile, which is the 25th quartile, the second quartile, which is the 50th percentile, which is also called the median. Then we have the third quartile, which is the 75th percentile. And then the last number in the 5-number summary is the maximum. Now, when you graph the data, the first thing you want to do is make your number line and scale it out. So here's our number line, and you want to create your scale. Each of these tick marks here should represent the same value. In this scale, it goes up by 1. So you can see that each tick mark is 1, 2, 3, it goes up by 1s. And then if you want to scale it differently, then that's fine, but each tick mark has to be worth the same. So if you want to go up by 2s, then you would start and write it as 2, 4, 6, and you would go up that way. Once you create your scale, the minimum value is going to be drawn at the end of the left whisker, and the maximum value is going to be drawn at the end of the right whisker. So this will be your min, and this will be your max. Then your Q1 will be drawn on the left-hand side of the box, and your Q3 will be drawn on the right-hand side of your box, and then your median will be the line that goes through your box. This also gives us a good idea of, when we look at this graph, how the data is spread out. Because remember what the quartiles represent. Each quartile breaks up your data into quarters, 25%. If I had a list of all the data values, 25% of the data values would fall between the minimum and Q1. Then between Q1 and the median, you would have another 25%. Then between the median and Q3, you would have another 25%. And then from Q3 to the maximum would be the top 25% of your data. Now notice that this is not symmetrical. Your median doesn't show that it's right in the center of your box. The median can be off center because it's not showing the distance between the data. What it's showing you is the center, the middle value when the data is numbered from smallest to largest. So keep that in mind, that your median isn't always going to be symmetrically in the center of your box. All right, so let's walk through the first example. We're given a set of data values, which is given as the heights of 40 students. And all the data values are listed. It says construct a box plot with the following properties. And then they give us the 5-number summary, which is very nice. In the next example, we're going to actually have to find the 5-number summary. So if you notice, the minimum value is 59. And the maximum value is 77. So when I scale and I make my number line, I want to start a little bit before the minimum and a little bit after the maximum, so that way it contains all the values. So I'll start it at 55, and maybe I'll go until 80. So, and a good scale for this, I think, would be to go by 5s. So I'll go by 5s up to 80. So I have 60, 65, 70, 75, and then 80. Okay, so here's my number line. Now, because we're given this data in the context of a problem, and we know that this data represents the heights of 40 students, I am going to actually label this as the heights of students. It's really important to label what that represents. Now, I'm assuming that is inches, even though it doesn't say in the problem. I'm just going to label it inches. All right, now we're going to plot all of our values. The minimum is at 59, so that goes here. The maximum is at 77, so that goes about right here. Then the first quartile, actually let me label this, minimum, maximum. Then the first quartile is at 64.5, so almost 65, that's Q1. Then we have the median is at 66, so right about here. And then we have the third quartile at 70. Now, the box needs to go around the middle 50%. So that's between Q1 and Q3. So I'm going to draw my box so that my Q1 and Q3 form the sides of my box. The median is the center, and you have that line down the center. And then you draw your whiskers out to your min and your max. And there is your box and whisker plot. So we're going to walk through this example now, and it has two data sets in this example. This is out of your book and it's in your notes. The data set has two sets of exam scores, and we're going to end up drawing a box plot for each of these. So for both data sets, we need to know the 5-number summary. Up until this point, I have walked you through how to find the 5-number summary by hand. Now I'm going to show you how to do this on your calculator. So from this point on, you will have the option to either do it on the calculator or do it by hand. That is totally up to you. So the first thing you want to do if you want to find the 5-number summary, we're going to find the 5-number summary for the first data set first that starts with this 99 here. You want to click on your stat button and then go into your edit. And you're going to enter all these data values in this first set into your list 1. If you need to clear out your list 1, what you can do is you can highlight by using your arrow buttons, highlight L1, and then hit clear and enter. And that should clear your whole list and you should be able to start over. Now, if for some reason you accidentally delete one of your lists, let me know and I can help you get that back. So what you want to do is enter in all your data values for the first set in list 1, and then your data values for the second data set in list 2. And I have mine already in there prepped for the lesson. So go ahead and put the video on pause so that you can get those entered. And then when you're ready, unpause. Once you get those data values in there, then what you're going to do is you're going to hit the stat button. And then this time, instead of using the edit menu, you're going to arrow over to the calculate menu. And the very first option says 1 variable stacks. You're going to choose option 1. And then you're going to enter either list 1 or list 2, whichever one you want to do first in here. I'm going to do list 1 first, and then I'm going to scroll down to calculate, and I'm going to hit enter. Then what's going to happen is a whole bunch of information is going to pop up about that data set. For right now, I just want you to look at the 5-number summary, which is if you use your arrow button to scroll down, you'll see that here. It starts right underneath the value of n. So where it says n is equal to 20, that means that's the number of data values in your data set. And then it lists the 5-number summary underneath that. So you have your min, which is 32, your first quartile, which is 56, your median, which is 74.5, your third quartile or the 75th percentile is 82.5, and then your maximum value is 99. Now, if you have a different version of the calculator where it doesn't look like this, when you go to do your one variable stacks, if it comes back up on your home screen rather than on a screen like this, then what you're going to do is when it comes up and says one variable stacks, the cursor will be blinking next to one variable stacks, and then you just put in your list that you want to use. So you would hit your second L1 or second L2, and then you hit enter, and it should do the same thing. You're just going about it in a different way. And if you have trouble with that, let me know and I can walk you through it. Now, I would like you to try and get the second 5-number summary for the second data set on your own and see if you can get the same values that I get to make sure you can get through that process okay on your calculator. So pause the video, and then when you unpause it, check your answers with mine. Okay, so here are the values for our one variable statistics for the second list. If we scroll down, we see that in the second list, we have a minimum value of 25.5. And then, by the way, we have 22 values in our data set. For our first quartile, we have 78. For our median, which is our 50th percentile, that's 81. For our third quartile, that's 89. And then our maximum value is 98. Now, if you don't have these values, there's a very good chance that you did one of two things. One, you got to go back and check to make sure you entered your data values correctly, because sometimes if you make a mistake when you type that information in, like for example, you type accidentally 78 twice instead of 77 and 78 or something like that. The other possibility is that you accidentally clicked on the wrong list to perform the one variable statistics on. So those are the two things that I would check first. And then if you're still having a hard time, let me know and I will walk you through the process and help you find your error. So now that we have the 5-number summary for each of these data sets, let's go ahead and write those down. That is the question parts for A and B. A asks for the minimum, the maximum value, the median, and the first and third quartile for the first data set, which is the 5-number summary. And then B asks the same thing for the second data set. So I'm going to go ahead and list that. The minimum for the first data set was 32, and the minimum for the second data set was 25.5. Then the first quartile for the first data set was 56, and the first quartile for the second data set was 78. Then we have our Q2s, which was our median. That was 74.5 and 81. Then our Q3s, we have 82.5 and 89. And then for our maximum values, we had 99 and 98. Now for part C, we're going to create a box plot for each of these data sets. Now I'm going to put them on the same number line so that we can compare. So here's the number line. Because we want to put both of these box plots on the same scale, so I want to make sure that all those values are represented there. So the smallest value for both data sets is 25.5. So I'll say, let's say I start at 20. And then the largest is 99, so I'll go up to 100. And I think for this one, probably maybe 5s would be good. All right, so there's my scale. Now I'll do, just so that we can distinguish the difference between the two, I'll do the first data set in purple, and then I'll do the second data set in red. Let's see, so the first data set starts at 32, so a little bit past 30. Then we have 56 for our Q1. Then the medium is 74.5 and then Q3 is 82.5, and then 99. So the middle 50% is going to be enclosed in the box, and then from each side of the box, I draw my whiskers coming out from each side. Now for the second data set, we start for a minimum of 25.5, and then we go up to Q1 for, let's see, that's 78. So way over here. Let's see, probably about right here. And then 81, and then 89, and then 98. So there's my center, my middle 50%, there's my median, and then my whiskers come out like this. All right, so let's label this. The second one was the evening scores. And then the first data set was the day scores. So for part D, we're going to look at the data set and find the percentage of data that lies from the smallest value to the first quartile. And remember what this box plot represents. We're breaking it up because we're using the 5-number summary. We're breaking it up into 25% chunks. That's what the quartiles do. So it doesn't matter if we're looking at the first or the second data set. If we're looking at those values that go from the minimum to the first quartile, the percentage should be about 25. Now, if we were actually trying to find the range of those values, that would be different because we're obviously subtracting different numbers. But the percentage of data value should be approximately 25% because we're breaking it up into those quarters. Now, for the second part of part D, it says you want to find the percentage between the first quartile and the median. The first quartile would be right here, and the median is right here. And that's 25% of the data. From the minimum to the first quartile is 25%. And then from here to here, the median to the third quartile is 25%. And then from here to here is the highest 25%. So when we look at just between the first quartile and the median, that's this part, that's about 25%. And again, that doesn't matter which graph we look at because we're breaking it up into 25% chunks. So if I look at the purple graph, the day scores, between the first quartile and the median, that should be 25%. For part 3, it says, what is the percentage between the median and the third quartile? So the median and the third quartile would be in a different color. Let's do this color. From the median to the third quartile would be this chunk here. Again, that is 25%. My daughter must have been playing with my iPad and made it all glittery. Let's see. The next one is the third quartile and the largest value. So from the third quartile, which is right here, to the largest value on either of these graphs, that's 25%. And then the last one says the first quartile and the largest value. So from the first quartile, that's right here, to the largest value right here, that is 3 25%, right? There's 25, here's 25, and here's 25, for a total of about 75%. And again, it doesn't matter which graph you're looking at, it should be about the same. So in this last example, I'm going to show you how you can draw the box and whisker plot and obtain the 5-number summary all at the same time using the tool on your graphing calculator that graphs the box and whisker plot, and that is under the stat plot here, and that's right above your y equals button on the calculator. So as usual, the first thing you want to do is you want to hit your stat button and then enter edit and you want to enter your data values in your lists. I'm going to enter mine in L4 because that's empty. You can enter your data values in any list that you want. It's just very important that you keep track of which list you're putting it in. So when you graph the data, you're telling the calculator the correct list of data values to use. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my data values. You want to make sure that you entered your data values correctly. That way you get the correct results. So I'm going to just scroll through and make sure I typed everything in correctly. And it looks like I missed a value right here between 90 and 100. So I'm going to insert that value. So to do that, above the delete button, it says INS for insert. So I'm going to click second delete, and it's going to make a space for me to insert that next value that I missed. So this is very important to check to make sure, for that very reason, that you entered your data values correctly. And it looks like here I entered by accident an extra 515. If you want to delete just one entry on the highlighted entry, you just hit the delete button and then it disappears. And then you can see the last value is highlighted in list 4, entry number 15, so you can count your data values and make sure that you have all 15. Yep, and I just counted, we do have 15 values there, so we're good to go. Okay, once you have your data values in your list, mine's in list 4, then what we're going to do, I want you to choose the Y equals button and make sure that you do not have any equations in here. You want to make sure that this is clear so that it doesn't overlap with our box plot and cause any issues with reading the graph. So you don't want to be graphing anything here. Then to actually graph the box plot, I'm going to access the stat plot menu, which is above the Y equals. So I'm going to hit second and then Y equals. I want to make sure that all my plots are off except for the one that I'm using. Again, I don't want overlapping graphs so that it gets confusing. So I'm going to click enter. My only graph right now that's on is plot 1. You can tell by looking up here as well. If plot 2 and plot 3 was on, it would be highlighted black, like this plot 1. And you can turn it off by clicking enter and toggling back and forth. If it's unhighlighted, then you know it's off. All right, now for the box and whisker plot, what you want to do is you want to scroll down and under type, you want to choose this option. It's the next to last option. So I'm going to hit enter on that. And then it's going to ask me which list I want to use. I put my data in list 4, so I'm going to choose second 4 to access my L4 notation. Just leave frequency alone. And then I'm going to hit enter. Once I've entered which list I'm going to use, then I'm going to automatically adjust the window to fit my box plot. I'm going to hit the zoom button, and then I'm going to choose zoom number 9 for zoom stat, and it will automatically adjust the window for me so I can see my box and whisker plot. Now, if you notice here, I have my box and my whisker plot. If I hit the trace button, you'll see that it says plot 1 L4. This is my L4 list. And down at the bottom, it tells you where your cursor is sitting. So this is saying that my median is 95, and it's showing you where it's located on the graph. And then I can use my arrow buttons to toggle back and forth between the points. If I toggle over 1, you can see that my Q1 is 15. That's my first quartile. If I toggle over again, I get my minimum value, which is 10. So my minimum value and my Q1 are very close together here because of the way that it's scaled. Now I can just go ahead and arrow over, toggle. There's my third quartile. That's 490. And then my maximum value is at 790. Now, if you want to adjust the graph or zoom in or out, you can always do that. If I want to zoom in over here and take a look at this spot over here that's hard to see, I can click zoom in and then move my cursor where I want to zoom in on, and then I can hit enter and it will zoom in on that part of the graph. So wherever my cursor is, when I hit enter on the zoom in, that's where it's going to focus the zoom on. And then again, just to quick review, if I hit the trace button and I use my arrow buttons, it will hop from value to value. And at the bottom, it labels what those values are. If I want to zoom in again, I can do that. I can just click the zoom in button, and wherever my cursor is sitting, if I hit enter, it's going to zoom in specifically on that. And then I can look at it even closer. And again, I can hit trace and toggle back and forth between the values. If I want to go back to my original screen that was given to me, I can hit zoom 9 and it will automatically adjust the screen for me. If I want to see how it's scaled on here, because most of the time on your graphing calculators, it doesn't show what the scale is down here. It might show you the tick marks, but it won't show you the scale directly on the graph. If I click on the window button, it will show you what my current graph is scaled at. So it's showing that my minimum value is at -68 and my maximum value is at 868. And this is on a scale of 2. So you can get the 5-number summary by going and hitting the stat button and arrowing over to calculate, and then using the one variable stacks feature, and you put in the list that you're using, in my case list 4, and then I can calculate. And then if I scroll down, it will give me my 5-number summary right here at the bottom. Or I can use the stat plot feature, where I graph by hitting second y equals and go to the stat plot, and I make my box and whisker plot from here. And from the graph, you can trace it and find your 5-number summary. So either one of those two methods is fine.